So today we're going to be reading Miss Frizzle's Adventures, Imperial China, and I'm going to show you how good readers think while they read using this book. So before we even open the first page, let's think about what could this book inform us about? What are we going to learn while we're reading this book? This is called making predictions, and this is important whenever you read or whenever you're picking out a book to make predictions on what you think it's going to be about. That helps to keep your mind on track, that helps to keep your focus, and you'll get a lot of questions answered by doing that. So we're going to do that today. So just by looking at Miss Frizzle right here and her two students, we see the clothes that they're wearing. So I can predict that throughout this book, we're going to learn about the type of clothes that people in Imperial China wore. Maybe how they made them, maybe where they got their clothes from or their shoes, and why it was important to them to dress in this way. Another prediction I can make by looking at the cover is we see this student right here pouring some tea, and Miss Frizzle has a cup. So I can predict that throughout this book we're going to learn about tea and why it was important in Imperial China. And then lastly, I can predict by looking behind the characters at these buildings that we're going to learn about the architecture, it's kind of a big word, or the types of buildings they had in Imperial China and what made them different from the buildings that we're used to today. Can anyone else make any predictions just by looking at this cover? We can see maybe the type of trees they had. We see a symbol on Miss Frizzle's earring that could be important. It's here holding a fan, right? There's a lot of things that the cover lets you know before you even open the page. So now let's go ahead and turn page. Okay, here's the first page. So it was the end of the school day, and I, Miss Frizzle, was on the move. Wanda, one of my favorite students, had invited me to spend Chinese New Year's Eve with her family. Wasn't that nice of her? So just in this short little excerpt, we see that Chinese New Year's Eve is approaching. So what is Chinese New Year's Eve and why is it important? And before I move on, this says, where is China? We know that China is in Asia, and it lets us see that right here. So when is Chinese New Year's Eve? That's a good question. So in our culture, we always have New Year's Day on the first day, January 1st, right? But in China, the holiday, Chinese New Year's Eve, can come on different days. So sometimes it can be at the end of January, and other times it can be in February, right? That's different from us. Now this is Miss Frizzle speaking again. She says, I had been teaching about China. Now I was going to celebrate China's most important holiday. It would be fun and so educational. Then down here we have some inventions that were made in China. Some interesting things. We have the kite. A kite in China was made over 2,400 years ago. That is really crazy, right? And Miss Frizzle says, learning about far-off places is fun, isn't it? So just from reading this is a lot of information to absorb. We have where we are, what we're doing, when we're doing it, and we have some inventions. So just to summarize what we know, just from reading these first two pages, we know that China is in Asia. We know we're going to be exploring Chinese New Year's Eve throughout this book. We know that Chinese New Year's Eve is different than our New Year's Eve. We know that in our book, we're in sometime in January or February. We know that kites, especially dragon kites, as we see up here, are important to Chinese New Year. And we see that kites were invented in China a very long time ago. Let's see what else we can learn about Chinese New Year's Eve. Even from that page, we can make some more questions. What kind of things do we do on Chinese New Year's Eve? Is it just one day? Is it different? Let's find out. So, that evening, I went to meet Wanda's family. This is Miss Frizzle speaking. Before dinner, we strolled around Chinatown, taking in the holiday sights. So now we have the question, what is Chinatown? And then you can look at this page behind us, look at the illustrations. There's a lot of red. I wonder, why is red important to China or Chinese New Year's Eve or even Chinatown? I'm sure they're going to tell us. And this is Wanda's family that Miss Frizzle is meeting. So there's just some dialogue about them getting introduced to each other. But we can just go ahead and skip down here. So Chinatowns around the world. That right there answers our question about Chinatown. So in almost every big city, there is an area where many people from China live. Chinese customs are kept alive there. So that's what a Chinatown is. First invented in China, we have another invention, the umbrella. I mean, how many times do we use an umbrella? And it was made 1,700 years ago. That is really crazy. Oh, and look, this answers our question about the red. What it means in China. The color red means happiness and good luck. So that means that red must be very important to Chinese culture, and we can see that displayed here. Let's continue. We were walking on a busy street, and when we had a big surprise, I wonder what the surprise is. Arnold, another one of my favorite students, was getting dropped off for his Kung Fu class. Of course, he was very glad to see us. Look at this. So, we have that thing about the Kung Fu lessons. So that might be something that isn't very common to us, but now we know that we're going to be exploring that in this book. So we can predict and we can question, what is Kung Fu class and what does it have to do with Imperial China? And let's go ahead and summarize a little bit of what we learned over here so we don't forget it. We have the invention of the umbrella in ancient China. We have the importance of the color red, and now we know what a Chinatown is.